Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. So you're probably wondering, what the heck is this? And why do I have it? Well, if you watched some of my previous videos and I was talking about getting my dream bike, there it is. Voila. The 2020 Aprilia RSV4 1100 factory. It is an amazing machine, and it's everything I've ever wanted. I've talked about this bike for, I don't know, a long time, and I finally got it. I got that right deal, and it worked out. As I mentioned before, I was just searching for that right price and that right deal to come along, and it finally did. And I got to give a shout out to Southeast Motorcycle in Savannah, Georgia, because they were the ones that came through and gave me that right deal. So if you're looking for an Aprilia, make sure you go down there and talk to those guys. They bent over backwards to make everything happen. They're awesome to deal with, very easy to deal with, and they're a great dealership. I highly recommend them. But I wanted to make this video about this bike and why I bought this one, and then also do a little first impression ride. Now I gotta say, I've already rode this bike a little bit, and it's still in their braking period. And today it's getting the brake and oil change done. But I wanted to do this quick ride and explain why I got this bike and why I didn't get something else. I did have 4 bikes in mind, this being one of them. And so we'll talk about that, and then also talk about first impressions. So watch this video all the way through, and if you like it and you want to see more videos on the Aprilia from an everyday person's perspective, I'm not a racer, I'm not a moto journalist or anything like that. I'm just an everyday motorcycle rider, motorcycle enthusiast. And so if you want to get the true, honest opinion about this bike, there's many more videos, so hit that like and subscribe button. But let's talk about this bike real quick. So the reason I got this one, not only is it, in my opinion, the best looking sport bike on the market today, and I'm not ragging on any other sport bike because I have much respect for all of them. They're amazing machines in itself. But in my opinion, this one is the coolest looking out of the bunch. I really like this motorcycle. I like the winglets on the front. Of course, they don't really do anything unless you're racing at super high speeds. But in my opinion, it looks cool. So that's really all it is. It just looks. I think it looks amazing. Everything on this bike is high-end specs, and we'll talk about that later on. But the reason I got this one is because, well, I was a little apprehensive about getting it. And the main reason is because we all know that the Italian bikes, parts for it are not readily available. Sometimes you have to wait for them to order it from Italy. It takes a while to get it. So if something goes wrong, even though it's under warranty, if something should go wrong, you got to take it to the dealership. And that's kind of a hassle because I don't have a dealership close by. The closest one's 3 hours away. The next closest one is 4.5 hours away, and that's Southeast Motorcycles in Georgia. So I took a chance. I took a chance that nothing will go wrong. And, because even the smallest little thing, if it goes wrong and it's maybe an item that is not a big deal, but it, prevents you from riding the bike, you got to take it to the dealer, leave it there. It's going to take 2, 3, 4 weeks for them to get the parts, whatever it may be, and then for them to fix it and give it back. So you might be down your motorcycle in the middle of the riding season for a month. And that sucks. But fortunately, I have an XSR 900, so if that should happen, I still have another bike. It sucks, but I still have one. But I took a chance on this one. I really did. I just, I've seen a lot of people say they had no issues with it. And then, you've heard some things where people had minor issues, but it was just big enough of an issue to disable the bike, not being able to ride it. But I'm hoping that's not the case. The other 3 bikes I was looking at was the CBR 1000, the 2021 model. The reason I didn't get that one is because it's pretty much the same bike that it has been for a long time, unless you get the SP model. But the SP is almost 30 grand. It's like 28 and some change. I'm sorry, I'm not spending that kind of money. That's ridiculous. I'm not, I don't have that kind of money to toss out. So the regular RR version, it doesn't even come with a quick shifter. It's an extra option. And I'm sorry for, $17,000 nowadays in 2021, standard quick shifter. Quick shifter should be standard on the bike. There's bikes half that price that have standard quick shifter up and down. So Honda, get it together. put a quick shifter on it. And the design is really pretty much the same. That bike's pretty much been the same for a long time. Not a whole lot change. The other bike I was looking at was the Aprilia. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the Aprilia. Was the R1 Yamaha, the 2020. It's a fantastic machine. All the pros, you know, it's a Yamaha, proven reliability. Parts are readily available. They're a dime a dozen. But one of the main reasons I didn't want it is because the R1 is a dime a dozen. They're everywhere. Everyone has one. And I've already had one. I had a 2001 R1. Now, granted, there's a big difference between the two, but I've already had one. So I wanted to try something different. The other bike I was looking at was the Ducati Panigale V4. The reason I didn't get that bike is one main reason. First of all, this one comes with a standard Akrapovic exhaust. That one does not. So if you want to change out the exhaust, it's well over $2,000 and you have to tune it. I'm not spending $2,000 on an exhaust. That's not going to happen. And it's well over $2,000. Some of them are near $5,000 for exhaust for a Panigale. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. I'm not spending that kind of money. Not only that, but the bike's already 20-some thousand. So then you're going to throw on $5,000 and have it tuned. No, I'm sorry. I'm not going through all that. Anything for that Ducati is expensive. Anything at all. This bike already comes with the exhaust, the Brembo Stylema brakes, stainless steel brake lines. Super Corsa tires, full electronic Öhlins suspension. We'll talk about that later on. I'll make another video about details and things like that. But that's why I ended up going with the Aprilia. And again, in my opinion, this is the best looking one out of the four. I think they're all good looking bikes. I really like all of them, but this one was the winner as far as looks, and it already has everything I was going to do to the bike. The only thing is that fender, that's got to go. Everything else is pretty much the way I would want it, so I don't really have to do anything to this bike, but we'll talk about that in another video. But right now, somebody asked for a startup, so I don't know how well this shows up on camera, but here it is. I don't know how well that sounds on camera, but I can assure you that it sounds much better in person. And we'll talk about this bike and the initial thoughts on it real quick. So obviously it's got the TFT display, electronic suspension. It's got the menu button here. You can go through the traction control, the power modes with the start button, ABS, wheelie control, and then of course you can tune the suspension any way you want. A bunch of other gadgets and gizmos, but for right now, let's just take it for a spin and see what it's like. The very first thing I can tell you, it is, out of all the sport bikes I've ever ridden, it is the most uncomfortable sport bike I've ever ridden. You know, I've ridden some sport bikes, and I've had several of them. I've had 600s, I had 750 GSXR, and I've had several 1000s. And I can tell you this one is by far the most uncomfortable. You're very leaned over, hunched over onto the handlebar, the seat's up real high. This bike, I can't flat foot. If I'm stopped at the light, I'm on my toes on both sides. The CBR 1000 I had, which was the latest one, it was a 2017, I could flat foot it on both sides. This one, I cannot. When I put my feet down, I'm on my toes, and I'm, what am I, like 5'10", and I can't flat foot it. Also, your knees are up real high, the foot pegs are real high up. The foot pegs are real high up. It's just very uncomfortable. So it's definitely not built for the city street. It is not comfortable for the city street, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. And if you want to overlook, comfort for a hell of a lot of fun, I do. I don't care. I don't care how uncomfortable it is. I'm still going to ride it, and I'm going to have a blast doing it. The other initial impressions, it's very flickable. I mean, this thing will turn in on a dime, and it holds the line very well. Yesterday I took it out for about several hours, put about 250 some miles, somewhere around there, and I wasn't overly uncomfortable, and we went through some twisties, and this thing will hold a line. It's very, very flickable, very easy to turn in. Some people said it wasn't as quick to turn in as some other bikes. I don't know, I disagree. I think it's excellent. Compared to my CBR 1000, I would say this thing turns in better than the CBR does. I think it's more flickable than the CBR, but I didn't ride it back to back, so I can't say for certain, but it feels like it is. The power is absolutely amazing. I got it on track mode, which is like the lowest setting. I don't know if it actually reduces power or just changes the sensitivity of the throttle. I'm not sure. I'd have to read into that a little bit, but I can tell you that the power is plenty for the city street on track mode. Then there's race, and then sport, and then race. And race is the most aggressive. I put it in race mode for just a minute. It's very, very sensitive, very touchy on the throttle. I don't think it's overly touchy, but it is. It's a big difference between track and race. And then sport is kind of in between. And I haven't really played around with that too much. Also had to play around with the traction control and the launch control. Wheelie control and the settings for the suspension. But that's a whole nother video in itself, because that's very complicated and I'm still trying to figure it out. This electronic suspension is nice. I think it's cool that you can just go right through the settings. But let's be realistic. You're using this bike for one of two reasons. You're either tracking it or you're riding on the road. So once you dial it in for the road, it's not like you're going to be going through and constantly changing things. You're just not. So do I need to go in there and be able to manually change things on push button? Not really, to be honest with you. I don't see the need for the electronic suspension, especially for the road, because once you dial it in, it's going to stay that way. And same thing for the racetrack. If you're on the track, you're going to dial it in to whatever setting you like, and you're pretty much going to keep it that way, unless you're changing racetracks constantly. But most people, you know, they do track days at one or two tracks, and when you do, come on, people, get out of the way. You know, you're going to dial it in, and then you're going to know what the setting is. So if you do go back to that same track, you're probably going to put it back to that same setting that you had before. So really, you could do with the manual settings or manually adjustable suspension. Come on. I'm trying to do a U-turn. I'm trying to let these cars go by. I think it's nice to have, and it looks cool, but I think it's overkill. And then same thing for the city street. Once you dial it in, you're going to leave it to whatever it is. Like right now, I have it set up one way, and it pretty much is going to stay this way. Now I'm going to play around with it a little bit just to see what it does and what it can do and what the different settings are. But once I get it dialed into where I like it, it's going to stay that way. So anyway, that's my impression of the suspension. You do have bragging rights, obviously, because, oh my God, it's cool and it's fantastic and you can brag about it. But realistically, I mean, it is what it is. I think it's overkill for the street, but it is nice. And then the power. Well, let's talk about power. This thing has gobs of it. It's in your face, brutal power. It really doesn't come alive till about 5,000. It has enough power for a city street under 5,000. I mean, you just roll on and it goes, and I barely gave it any gas. It'll go, but it has a ton of power. I haven't really revved this thing out because it's still under a break-in period. And in fact, like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be doing the oil change on this thing today, this afternoon. And then I'm going to baby it for a little bit more, maybe to about 1,000 miles. And then we're going to light into it and see what it can do. The other thing I really like is the sound that this thing emits. It's just a beastly sound. I've never had a bike like this. I've always had the Japanese inline 4s. And those are nice. They sound good, especially if you put an exhaust on them. But this thing, I mean, I don't know if it comes up on camera, but just listen. I mean, it's just an awesome sound. That V4 engine is fantastic. It's got plenty of pull, lots of torque. And to those of you wondering why my shift lights are flashing, because you can change where the shift light indicates. Right now I got it at 6,000. Try not to take it above 6,000 very much under the break-in, but so that's why it's flashing. But the sound that this thing puts out is just absolutely amazing. The power is just brutal. And it's got that quick shifter up and down, which is fantastic. I've never had a bike with a two-way quick shifter. The only one I ever had was the MT10, and that was a quick shift up only. So I've never had auto blipper down, and it's fantastic. And let me tell you, once you have one, you're spoiled. You don't want to ride another bike that doesn't have it. I am officially spoiled with this quick shifter. It is absolutely phenomenal. I love everything about this bike, and I'm so happy I bought it. And this motorcycle is everything I thought it was going to be, and then some, minus the comfort. It's more uncomfortable than I thought it was going to be. But again, I don't care. I don't care about being uncomfortable. Who cares? This is an Aprilia RSV factory. Comfort doesn't even cross my mind. It's just the fun of this motorcycle is absolutely amazing. It is absolutely fantastic, and I can't commend this motorcycle enough. This thing is a beauty. I think it's awesome looking. And so I'm gonna make a video about the things that I really like, maybe like the top 5 things I like about it and the top 5 things I don't like about it. You know, every bike has its quirks, and every bike has some cons to it, and this one is no exception. It does have some quirks and some things that I don't like, but obviously they're not big enough to keep me from buying it, so that's that. But stay tuned for that video. That's coming up. And if you want to see more, like I said, just hit that like and subscribe button, and there's plenty more videos to come. And if you have any comments or questions about this bike or anything motorcycle related, put your comments in the section below, and we can talk about it, and we'll go from there. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.